All right. Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where I'm going to be speaking with Lesley and Ben from the British hardcore punk band Midwich Cuckoos. This is a band that doesn't really fit a specific label, but its roots are punk rock, though it has evolved into something so much more now. They just released their new album, Death or Glory, which is quite a rad album. We'll be speaking with Midwich Cuckoos about the album and more right after this. You're listening to the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. The Powered by Rock podcast was created to help showcase some of the best rock musicians in the world and to pass on to future generations the rock music that has inspired rock fans around the world for decades. We want listeners to be able to hear great stories and life experiences directly from their favorite artists, as well as dig deeper into music theory and talk rock like no other show you've ever heard. This isn't about looking cool, it's about getting real and having a great time. Without further ado, let's start the show. All right, here we are back at the Powered by Rock podcast. Today's going to be an awesome show. I get to speak with Ben and Lesley from Midwich Cuckoos, which is a British rock band that has roots in punk rock, but has transformed through like a pretty cool concept of having a music collective create songs until a band was pretty much formed around it. So, hey, Lesley and Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Isaac.
Hey, Isaac. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you guys here. So I did mention in the pre-reel that basically the new album's launched. Now, by the time this airs, it will have. It actually is about a month away from launching, from what I understand. But you have released both EPs, Death and Glory, separately, and then they'll be put together in kind of a bit of a more produced full album called Death or Glory. And that's pretty much how it's going, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Perfect. I can read some information off the internet pretty well. Awesome. So before we dig into the new album, which I believe is the second full-length album, let's talk about how this band got going in the first place, because it wasn't the typical band even from the start. And actually, I don't know if all of you guys were even in the original iteration. I know a couple new people have kind of come in and out since the first kind of album was released. Can you guys kind of talk me through how this band kind of got together, how you guys got into the project, and what it's been like so far?
Well, I think it all started with Pat, but I think we need to even rewind further back from that, because Pat, our guitarist, was in a band before with Ben.
Yeah, I was in a band with Patch called where is it? Monsters in the Attic. You can see the bass drum skin I've still got from many years ago. But yeah, I met Pat out of school, so I've known Pat quite a long time. We've played in a few different bands. And then, yeah, we ended up sort of the latest iteration is Midwich Cuckoos.
Yeah. And how did you guys kind of bring everybody into the band?
Well, that was really down to Pat, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think after Midwich Cuckoos dissolved, in fact, I was working with the guys not on the stage, sort of behind the scenes. You know, Pat just had like a lot of song ideas, which he was sending, I know, to me. I don't know if he was sending them over to like sort of you, Ben, or anybody else. But then like I chucked some sort of lyric lines on them because like he hates writing lyrics. And next thing I knew, like he had like a studio booked. So I went in and did some vocals and then didn't hear anything for ages. And then had another bit of a song and bits just kept on coming back and forth. And then he's like, hey, like, I'm putting this thing together. Can you help me sort of, make this album? Can you suggest somebody who can like sort of, mix it? And like all of a sudden sort of Ben's in the room. Who else did we have on the album? We had Hiku in Brazil.
Yeah. The drums were recorded in Brazil. Like the sort of guitars and stuff were recorded in London. I think the singer the initial singer, she was from Italy. So it's sort of made up from sort of people from around the world, and just sort of everyone kind of recorded their part and then kind of put it together.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the really cool things. I think you guys have, guest musicians on the albums as well. And I know it's kind of something that's always kind of been the premise, not necessarily like it was a theme necessarily like, oh, you're going to have just like a bunch of, cobbled together musicians. Because in the end, you guys do have a band, but it has been something that you have had constantly is a couple of guest musicians on every album, and I know there's a couple of guest singers, I believe, David from the Casualties, and I want to say Lisa.
Lisa from the Bellrays.
Yeah, Lisa from the Bellrays. I'm like, I don't want to say Lesley because that's Lesley, but it's something like that. It's Lisa from the Bellrays. Yeah. So, you know, when you guys were first going through this, was this something you guys wanted to have guest musicians? Is it something you always want to keep doing, is kind of bring in other people from other places to kind of spice things up and mix it up?
I think it was just something to make it a bit more, well, even more interesting for us, just to try and get, I don't know, people that we've grown up listening to, or just bands we're interested in, just to get them involved. I think it's mainly down to Pat, I guess, actually getting these people in on the album. I think he's quite good at sort of convincing people to do stuff.
He's like, staring into my
that's
eyes.
So yeah, I think a lot of that is down to him sort of getting these people involved. But
like he convinced both of you guys to come on here and do the podcast today. He was like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
He convinced me to be in the band. I don't think I'd played for like a good 20 years prior, really. Yeah. I kind of put down the guitar and like picked it up again. And it's been great. Yeah.
So you don't have a British accent. I don't detect anyway. So what's kind of your story, Lesley? How did you get, you know, why are you in the UK if you're not originally from the UK, and why are you playing in a band that you haven't played guitar for 20 years in?
Well, that's the thing. I actually am British. I just grew up everywhere else. So this is a sort of American international school accent that like I've picked up overseas, mainly in the Middle East.
Okay.
And like when I came back to sort of study in the UK, sort of met Ben and Pat, and I was playing in bands originally, but like I sort of moved over to the business side of things. So started working with them, stopped playing a lot less, and you know, just sort of fell out of it really.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you come back and just blow everybody's mind by being in one of the most technically talented guitar bands of all time.
It helps that there's three of us, and yes, it's been challenging. The guys really keep me sweating.
Yeah, I bet. So the name of the band obviously is from the book by John Wyndham, Midwich Cuckoos, which is kind of like a bunch of kids born by sort of like an alien conception they call xenogenesis, and they possess some like mind control and other abilities. Who's the sci-fi fan that chose the name, and why? And did you guys know that there's a new movie coming out on Sky TV called Midwich Cuckoos?
That's down to Pat again. I think there's like an old legend that some wise man said when he was quite young, Midwich Cuckoos would be a fantastic name for a band. And it just kind of stuck into the back of his mind. And when he couldn't figure out a name for the project, that like sort of popped up again. And here we are.
So it's kind of like he probably read the book in like middle school or something, and then remembered that until now and was like, that's what it's going to be.
As a legend foretold it, yes.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, so let's talk about the new album, because obviously I've listened to the new album, Death or Glory. You have released both EPs. I've listened to it quite a few times. It's quite the production, because you know the from start to finish, it's just like holy shit. Like they've got, you know, intros, they've got, you know, samples to make like more theatrical. It's kind of like putting together like, you know, a Metallica album and a Michael Jackson album together with like some punk album, and you're like, this is just like some crazy, you know, production thing, but it's pretty cool. And I think, you know, it's kind of all worked its way into it's sort of a concept. The songs don't necessarily kind of align to a concept album, but the Death or Glory theme does seem to fit throughout the songs. Is there kind of, do you guys have a concept, or I don't know whose idea it was, maybe it was Pat's again, or maybe you guys all work together on the concept, but what's the idea behind putting it together like the way that you have?
Well, I guess the intention was like a concept album. I think we came up with the name of the album first, and then thought, we could sort of try and thread it together with some like narratives and sort of instrumental parts in between, and then sort of the songs fell in around that. So the initial intention was like a concept album. Okay.
And then you split it up and released it as separate EPs. Obviously the intros, outros, and the threading and stuff like that is kind of missing on the releases, but was there a specific reason, or was it just to kind of catapult some kind of momentum by releasing the EP separately?
Exactly that. So like in this modern age of like streaming, it really helps to kind of release singles before your big album. So it's just also we're a new band. It gives people the opportunity to listen to us, get to know us, sort of get a flavor of what we're doing. Because like Death and Glory, you know, even the tracks feel a lot different. And you know, with each single, we just felt that, you know, we're just like sort of showcasing a different side of the band.
Yep.
And you know, with the, you know, the narrative and stuff, I don't think listening to the songs or listening to the singles beforehand ruins the big surprise of the album.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
Not like you're hiding something in your back pocket, like wait till you get the album. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that, you know, I mean, Justin Bieber was probably the first one I remember doing this, where he just launched his album by releasing 10 singles in a row. And I'm like, who does that? And then it's like, number one, number one, number one. I'm like, okay, that's probably why they're doing it. So that guy's rich and famous now. I get it. But you know, you see it more and more because streaming, it is that, like, you have to be kind of getting more momentum from the streams. And then obviously Spotify, Apple, and all those other companies will put you more into these playlists and all those, get that rotation and stuff. So it's a pretty clever way to do it. And like you said, it doesn't ruin the surprise. And obviously you guys have kind of hidden the production of the album. So it just makes it even more kind of a full bodied experience when they actually listen to the whole thing.
It is a wild ride. It was a wild ride to record it, like all those elements and stuff. Like I couldn't believe what we had theremin on there, didgeridoo.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I didn't hear a didgeridoo, but I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it now for that. That's awesome.
But I mean, that's sort of down to Tim Kramer, our producer. Like he's really up for anything, and you know, he's like, yeah, he'd swivel around in his chair and like sort of come up with ideas like, oh, is this too much? Like, no.
Well, he was also very open to suggestions. So I think a lot of the time, like we joke around quite a bit in the studio, and just generally we're sort of quite easygoing. So we'd suggest something, and he'd just say, yeah, let's do it. So I think some of the things were sort of started off as, oh yeah, we could put a didgeridoo, or let's get some trumpets in, and then it would happen.
Yeah. Well, who's playing the didgeridoo?
That's me.
Really? How did you pick that up? Because I've been to Australia. I've tried it. I don't get it.
I think I got it as a birthday present when I was like 13 or 14.
Wow.
So yeah, I've just always played it since then. Yeah, I never had the opportunity to play it on a release before, so or even on stage. So
get that extra revenue stream by being the full-time didgeridoo player. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I do try and do a bit of everything.
That's awesome. Very cool. So let's talk about some of the songs on the album, because I really like how you guys threw up like a bunch of guitars in the mix to be able to play like synchronized guitars, leads, rhythms, and basically just whatever the hell you want at any given point. But you also refrain from too much of anything. It's kind of weird because you don't hear like 3 guitar solos, you know, in any one song. It's not like some of those bands where it's like, okay, you know, Slash is going to lead, and then it's like, you know, Tom Petty's going to come over and play lead. It's not like everybody's playing lead in every song. You get those riffs and then have like a lead here or there or whatever. But I'm just curious, like how do you figure out when to balance these things out? And is it hard to have 3 guitar players? And I know, Ben, you're playing bass, so you've got to sit there and wait for them to do their thing. And you're just like, all right, guys, when do I get a shine, play some little tasty lick here. But what's your take on like how you guys kind of pick and choose when to showcase a specific member or an instrument?
A lot of discussion, isn't it? Like working out bits and ideas, and then we forget it, and then we've got to figure out who does what again. But Ben like manages to effortlessly add that groove that just underpins everything, all the layers that I feel that the guitars bring to it.
Yeah. So I think having 3 guitarists sort of give us the benefit of having, like, say, drums, bass, and a guitar playing the rhythm, and then you can have 2 guitars doing harmony solos, which a lot of bands can't do. But it does take quite a lot of orchestration to get it to sit well together and to get it to sound good. I mean, we could all just be playing different things, or we could all be playing together. You kind of have to get that balance and sort of let the song dictate what's happening. Yeah.
And so, I when I think of bands that do this really well, it's bands like Dragon Force, Dream Theater, some of these, really high-end prog rock bands that are just like, they might have their, I think most of them, I can't remember if Dream Theater has a separate singer from all their guitar players, but most of them have a separate singer, like a dedicated vocalist, and then the separate guitar player, so that they can do all that synchronized stuff. And it's crazy because you're just like watching them. I'm like, I don't understand how you've got the timing to be able to do all this. It's like, I played guitar since I was 11. I'm now 40, and I still don't have the patience to try to figure out how to do that like on my own, like let alone to try to figure out how to do that with somebody else and be like, let's make this like synchronized swimming and let's do it together. So it truly is one incredible thing when you see, you know, people just doing like a synchronized solo, and you're like, it just melts my brain how easily it seems to happen. And how does your drummer Dan even know what the hell's going on half the time?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I just listened to it. I'm like, okay, so like the guitar players are all like, okay, now we're going to do like this break, like 1, 2, bop, 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 bop. And he's just like, you know, if you guys were playing this live in the studio, like, and that was the first time you ever played it, I'm sure you'd just be sitting there going like, seriously? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, if I didn't have the, you know, if you didn't have the experience of having it on recording and listening to it like 40, 50 times before he sat down to play it, it'd be pretty tough.
It's yeah, like I think we've just locked it down in rehearsals. I mean, not to say that nobody ever makes a mistake, but you know, I think especially live with our show, there's a lot of visual cues. You know, there's lots of shouts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Bob, like, let's go.
Yeah. You know, I think it's just sort of more about the energy, because it's, it would be very easy. Like I can get lost in a riff, and then, you know, especially like when we're layering as well, like, oh my God, is this like the sort of second or third repeat? But yeah, Dan's solid, and he's sort of really shown his skills on this album. Like listening to, I was just enthralled listening to his drum tracks with a click once he recorded them. It was that good. Yeah.
And then were you going to say something, Ben? I wasn't sure if I didn't want to interrupt you, because I know you're part of the rhythm section. So you have to kind of be in time with Dan, and Dan has to be in time with you.
Yeah, well, I think we're sort of very reliant on kind of sort of visual cues, as Lesley said. But yeah, also having decent monitoring when we're playing live. Yeah. Because there's so many of us, and it's really loud when you've got 3 guitar players. So you just have to make sure you can hear each other.
Nice. So I think 2 perfect examples are the first 2 songs on the album, Majesty and Crosses, that have a ton of speed and guitar work. Was there a reason these 2 were kind of put first on the album, aside from the intros? Did you guys have a discussion about which tracks? I mean, obviously you talked about it being, you know, in theory a concept album, but was there like, hey, we're going to start with these songs, or was it just kind of like how it worked out, or which did you pick as the songs in the order? Because I love to know about the order of the music, because it's like its own decision process within the album, right? So it's like you have to figure out the tracks, where are we going to put the tracks, and how's it going to come together? So how do you guys go about that process?
Well, the album's divided into sort of 2 EPs, Death and Glory, and then together Death or Glory. I think the songs kind of divide themselves between the 2 titles. So things that were a bit more, I guess, sort of darker, maybe a bit more punk were on the Death side of the album, and then things that were a bit, I don't know, a bit more sort of epic sounding, or I don't know what's the word, sort of a bit bigger sounding, ended up on the Glory side. And the order sort of decided itself after we recorded them. We sort of listening through, and then decided it needed to sort of tell a story. The dynamics needed to go up and down. So that's how they were arranged.
Gotcha. So is it kind of like, hey, this is like the epic, like come in, like here's Majesty, and this is going to kind of blow your mind right off the bat, and then we'll kind of tell the story from there? Is that kind of, I mean, that's how it seems to me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there were like some songs that were informed by the narrative. Like, I think we had Tim, the guy who did the narration, that was like fairly early in the recording process.
We got that like right at the start. We had the all of the narrative done, I think, before we'd finished recording most of the tracks.
That's fine.
So it did help inform the order.
Cool. So I know you guys, we talked about having David Rodriguez from the Casualties on Crosses. I assume you guys have probably not played in the same room with him, but was this like done by sending him the song and just like him singing over it and then sending it back? Obviously, since like there's been so many travel restrictions over the couple of years, is that pretty much how you guys would do it? Just like, here's the track, here's how, like a scratch track for vocals, go have at it. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, that's how he approached it. I mean, you know, considering the first album was pretty much done over Zoom and you know, sending all over the place, this was a lot easier. You know, Pat actually met David at it was the Starving Wolves gig, and he's seen the Casualties play and sort of gotten to know him and kept in touch. So you know, when we were doing this track, he was like, "Hey, this is crazy. Should I ask David to be on it?" So we sent over that sort of scratch track, and yeah, his ferocious feral takes sort of came back.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's got I mean, I've heard the Casualties, and it's not like it's a different vocal. It's just he seemed to really like put a lot of gravel and grunt into this one for this band, which was pretty cool to see.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah,
everything we wanted and more.
Yeah, you know, his voice is amazing, and on this track, you just let rip.
Yeah, yeah, it's very cool. And then obviously you just released a brand new video, so when people see this, it'll be a month old. But we just saw a brand new video for the single "Blood Mother" come out. Can you take me through the song process? How you got Lisa from the Bellrays involved, and what was it like making the music video? Because it's somewhat funny and also somewhat, you know, horror themed, theatrical, but more comedy driven than anything for a band that is kind of a hardcore punk, I guess, or maybe metal kind of band. So walk me through that.
Well, with regards to getting Lisa on the track, that was Pat's suggestion. We were looking for someone to sort of sing on this track, sort of throwing a few ideas around. He suggested Lisa from the Bellrays. So I had to listen to basically everything she's been on, all the different tracks with the Bellrays or sort of various other artists where she's featured. And that's what sort of instigated the writing of the track. It was written specifically for her. We didn't have anything before selecting her to sing it.
And so was it something like, was it the tone of her voice, or was it, because I mean the music styles that she sings in is not necessarily your
it's absolutely nothing like that. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was just the tone, like just the noises that she can make, like some of the sort of raspier parts of her sort of soulful voice, but then also the power when she chooses to do that as well. I was just blown away by it, and that's what sort of inspired writing that part for her.
Nice. So Lesley, take me through the making of the music video.
Oh, well, you know, I don't think it's a secret that we do love our sort of 80s and 90s films. So I think the idea was to dress up as Cobra Kai from the Karate Kid for our Halloween show, and we got a good friend, Colin Wallace, to come down and
I should mention the Cobra Kai Halloween costumes that they wear in the Karate Kid.
That's correct. Yeah, the skeleton costumes. So, you know, we went along with that theme, and then we thought, like, you know, how can we add on to this? Because we do tend to go way out there with our ideas. And like, I knew my good friend Dan, who played Miyagi in the music video, was like sort of really great martial arts. And I thought, like, why don't we just film like a little narrative piece to it?
Yeah.
Just expand on the idea. You know, like, I don't think we don't like to take ourselves too seriously and have a bit of fun. So hopefully that video delivers in that regards. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys actually are aware of this. I'm going to give you a little pop-up trivia that you can maybe use for, you know, pub nights or whatever, or just spout it out on stage at some point. But the guy who's wearing the football jersey, the American football jersey that says Matthews 24 for the San Diego Chargers, Ryan Matthews, the football player, was actually from Riverside, California, which is where the Bellrays are from.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Pretty interesting little.
We knew that.
I do my research, man. I tell you. Like, I saw that. I was like, Ryan Matthews, isn't he from like California? And Bellrays are from California. Turns out they're from the exact same city. So I don't know who's wearing the jersey, but it's a pretty good shout. Yeah, exactly. So you can put that like on a little bubble on the video from now on and be like, Awesome. So the song Sucker, that one kind of caught my eye and my ear because it's a pretty brutal song about a woman who basically leads a man on and treats him like crap. And the more he tries to keep her around, the more she moves away. Now I don't know who's writing all the lyrics or who's specifically wrote that song, but maybe, Tansy or somebody, was this based on any real life relationship to anybody's knowledge? Or was this just like, hey, this would be a kind of cool concept for the song?
I'm struggling to remember how that was put together. Do you remember, Ben?
It wasn't really a specific relationship. I mean, I think it was it was kind of written in the studio. We had some sort of basis for the lyrics, and then everyone kind of sort of put in their sort of feeling on it. But I think it's based on personal experiences.
So somebody had their heart ripped out and stomped on, or somebody did the ripping out and was like, I'm going to write a song about that because that felt awesome.
Yeah.
I want to know the gossip now.
Yeah. I mean, like when I'm just looking at the song, like, when like a hard kind of song comes on, you just like kind of listen to the music at first, but then you start listening to the lyrics and you're like, this sounds pretty kind of mean and mean spirited. But then, yeah, if there was no real specific person, then it's like, okay, that's just kind of relationships. That's how they go.
Well, I guess like the angle on our writing, our sound and everything is just to kind of go bigger, if anything. So, with the lyrics, if you can't see it, if you can't feel it, go back to the line and sort of redo it.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I haven't watched the new Motley Crue, I think it's called The Dirt, that documentary or whatever you want to call it, that biopic. But it seemed like that was kind of their thing, is like, if you're not going to go over the top, why even try? Like, it's kind of that hair metal band thing, is like, we're going to put on a stadium show in a dirty little club and people's minds are going to be blown away. So I think it's kind of along that same, lineage of songwriting, is like, just go big and make it, epic, and then let people be either irritated, annoyed, or love it.
Go big or go home.
Yeah. Awesome. So one thing I will say is that, you guys kind of have on the, I think some of your bios and stuff, you kind of mentioned that you're punk, but you're also, I think it was something like Fleetwood Mac with punk and metal or something, was kind of like how it's described. And I would say, the punk moniker doesn't really fit, at least not anymore, not on the new album. It's kind of more like a prog rock, metal, kind of heavier kind of sound, in my opinion. Do you feel like that's where the music is going, or was it ever designed to go in a certain way, or is that just kind of how it all came together?
Well, I mean, there's 6 of us in the band, so I think now, like, the initial album is written sort of maybe between sort of two or three people, but this current album was written by all 6 of us. So you're getting a very collaborative sound. Everyone listens to sort of quite different styles of music, and that's what's come together on this album, hopefully cohesively. But I think it is a mixture of all of our different tastes and all of our different influences. Yeah.
Lesley, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think we perform at punk.
Yeah. It's punk spirited prog rock sound, I think, is kind of how I would state it.
Yeah, definitely. I struggle to sort of pigeonhole it, and it does change, and even the same song changes sort of when I sort of listen to the album. Like, I felt that was hard rock, now it's a bit more metally. Now I'm getting 80s pop vibes to it, but yeah, definitely performed as punk, because I guess there's just so much, I think there's more fun associated with punk than there is with metal.
Yeah, it's a little bit more communal, I would say. Metal is kind of more angry in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying that as a whole, I'm just saying in general, that's kind of the way that the music seems to go. More aggressive, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we've definitely sort of fitted in with the punk community in London and the UK.
Nice. Yeah, I've talked to several bands that are like, we've never been punk, but the punk scene accepts us, so we play punk, because we all grew up listening to punk, so we play punk, even though we're just kind of like a pop rock band or whatever. And it's like, it's like once you have that kind of connection, that never seems to go away. Like you kind of just become a an iteration of a punk band that turned into something different or evolved into something different or has the ability to kind of morph back and forth. So I think it's something that, maybe on the next album, you'll see maybe some new ways that the band will go. So it'll be interesting to see that. Now, not talking about another album because you've just released another one, but I'm sure you guys will release another album at some point. So hopefully that'll come, in the next couple of years, and you guys can play this one out and tour for it. So speaking of that, are you guys going to be planning any national, international tours to support Death or Glory?
Absolutely. We've got the Death or Glory tour happening in April. So just the day after our release, we'll be hitting London and then sort of heading all across the UK. Dates include Southend, Peterborough, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Liverpool, Birmingham, and we ended at the Manchester Punk Festival, which is a fantastic independent festival in the UK. Very
cool. You guys are going to be going into the European Union, or are you guys going to wait until the war dies down before that happens?
I think we're just going to see how everything sort of plays out. Would really love, I guess before that thing called COVID hit, we actually were going to hit Spain and look at booking sort of further afield. But also with Brexit, we're just going to see how things sort of play out. And, we haven't even played a lot of the UK yet. So there's a lot of places that we're sort of itching to get. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's like, obviously when it's cold and rainy, people tend to stay indoors, but once it becomes, spring, summer, they're going to want to go to like you said, like the festivals and get out and listen to some music again. So I think it's a perfect time. And I think you're going to be unleashed upon the world, especially in the UK, and they're going to really enjoy the music.
I can't wait. Yeah, and don't worry, Europe, we're coming for you as well.
Yeah. I'll keep my fingers crossed for Las Vegas at some point, but I'm not sure that'll happen. We'll see.
Never know.
Yeah. Now, I know that you guys also are kind of recently been showcased on this Kerrang contest to try to get a label deal. I think by the time this will actually air, the contest will probably have ended. So hopefully, I can say congratulations, good job. You guys have a record deal, and you guys are the contest winners. But until it's happened, what's the experience been like, and how did that come to happen?
Well, we just answered it, and next thing you know, I got an email which was great to say that, like, hey, we're up for this sort of fan vote. And how many weeks is it? I think it's a total of 6 weeks, and they pick like sort of 5 or 6 bands every week. And there's some great young bands out there, some that I haven't heard of, and it just shows you like sort of how great the sort of talent in the UK is at the moment. So I'm quite impressed that we got selected. And yeah, it's fantastic. We just got a lot of the sort of community or sort of fans and friends to vote, and we've made it to the final. Yeah. So I don't normally like to vote on those things, because then you have to give your email address, but I did for you guys. So. Oh, thanks, man.
I'm like, I'm going to get a bunch of spam, but I haven't gotten any yet, so that's good. Now, I know that you mentioned working with the producer, Tim. I'm not sure if he has a production company or if there's a record label involved, but maybe talk to me about like kind of the actual or like the steps by step of the producing and mixing and mastering of this album, and how you guys were able to put this all together, in between dealing with lockdowns and all that stuff. Because, the UK has been quite restrictive on getting out and doing stuff over the last couple of years. I mean, it's not quite as bad as Australia, I would say, but it's pretty bad. I mean, the US, I think we had like 2 months of actual lockdown and nothing since then. So it's like, just go out and get each other sick. Who cares? You'll figure it out. But in the UK, it's obviously an island nation and a lot more restrictive, and for good reason, because there's a lot of, you guys also have public health. We don't. We have private health. So there are people like, yeah, you'll just starve, you'll die, whatever. It doesn't matter. But talk to me about the producing and the record making processes as you guys went through this.
Well, yeah, it was after the initial lockdown, when sort of things eased a little bit. That's when we went in and started the recording, and it was with Tim Kramer at Signal House Studios. Gotcha. So we went in individually. It started with the drums, as most recordings do. We had like a guide track, and then the drummer went in and he recorded the first half of the album, which was Death. That was another reason for sort of splitting it up into the 2 EPs, making it much easier to record and sort of breaking it down like that. So we did it sort of half and half. But yeah, basically it just went in individually. So the drummer went in, then I went in and did the bass, and then the guitars went in, and then sort of vocals and backing vocals at the end of that. But yeah, just everyone kind of individually. And as restrictions kept easing, we sort of went in more and more of us together, sort of 2 of us, 3 of us, 4 of us at a time, and then for the backing vocals, everyone in at the same time. Sort of right
so how many times has the full band been in the same room together? Then has it been plenty of times, or like not very many times?
Well, it's quite difficult to sort of pin down 6 people to get everyone in a room at the same time.
I was in a punk band in high school, and it was hard to get 3 people in the same room at the same time. I was like, "Come on, guys!"
Well, yeah, you can imagine that's multiplied with 6 people. I mean, it is difficult, but yeah, everyone we do manage it. Everyone's very passionate, and everyone really wants to make it work. So we just make it work.
Nice. Very cool. Another cool thing I saw that you guys actually just recently, I think maybe within the last couple of days, is you announced you have your own beer now. You're making some big progress in the world. You like, hey, we just released an album, we got our own beer. Next stop, we're gonna do stadium tours. No big deal.
So being in a band is a thirsty work, I must say.
Yeah.
So there's this great craft brewery called London Beer Labs. It's based in South London in Brixton, and we approached them to see if they'd be interested in working on a beer with us. And they said yes, and sort of rest is history. So this will it's for pre-order only, and unfortunately, as it's bottles, we can only sort of sell within the UK.
Yeah.
But who knows if the response is big enough? Perhaps we can sort of do another run of cans. But yeah, it's just a special way to, I think, celebrate the album with something that's not necessarily CD or a T-shirt. It's just something different, really fun.
Yeah, it's like here's another piece of merch you can get, or you can drink our awesome beer that goes perfectly with the album. Very cool. So you did mention, obviously the tour that you have. Did you guys have anything else that you have coming up that you want to talk about, promote or anything to maybe let people know about, since either maybe they haven't heard of you guys yet or haven't maybe followed all the things that you guys are working on that you would like to say before we go today?
Well, the album's out by the time this airs, but we still have a couple of surprises up our sleeves.
Okay.
Another video coming up, so keep your eyes peeled on that. And we should be also working on some more dates around the UK. So we haven't touched the Southwest yet, but hopefully you should hear some more.
So yeah, I definitely want to check out the brand new website, which I saw, by the way. It looks really good. So check out the website. I think it's, is it midwichcuckoos.com or something like that? Or the Midwich
That's the one.
Yep. I'll put the link below all this stuff, but we'll check out that for the dates and all the interesting stuff. Go follow them on social media, Midwich Cuckoos, Facebook and Instagram, all that stuff. I want to thank Lesley and Ben for being here today. Awesome conversation. If you haven't checked out their site, their music, go check it out. Go to the show notes below this episode for the links. If you guys like what you heard on the show, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends on social media. You can see the full video interview on our YouTube channel as well. Also, if you want to check out some of our written content or any of the products or merch that we have available, go to poweredbyrock.com to read our absolutely free rocking blog full of album reviews, which we've done an album review for Death or Glory, so you can go check that out. Interviews and lists to keep you entertained, and find our gear as well so you can pick up some items to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
Supposed